Okay. Evidence as to the four Gospels. There is but one passage in the Curtin epistles which can be cited even as apparent evidence of the existence of either of the four Gospels. Be thou wise as the serpent in everything, and harmless as to those things which are requisite as the dove. No source is indicated whence this is taken. It is one of the sayings of Jesus which were preserved in various forms, both by tradition and in older Gospels. It is not much relied on as evidence. Reverend Mr. Sandy, after citing the passage from the Epistle of Ignatius to Polycarp and thinking it ought to be referred to the similar passage in Matthew 10:16, adds, "It is, however, possible that Ignatius may be quoting not directly from our gospel, but from one of the original documents, such as Ewald's hypothetical Spurch Samalung, out of which our gospel was composed, though it is somewhat remarkable that this particular sentence is wanting in the parallel passage in St. Luke. Ignatius had been 40 years bishop of Antioch and was said to be 86 years old at the time of his death." The martyrdom of Ignatius. This purports to have been written soon after the martyrdom by some persons who accompanied Ignatius to Rome. Many have expressed doubts as to its authenticity, others have rejected it altogether. It is unnecessary to decide. The document has but little historic value, since the martyrdom is generally admitted. Polycarp, AD 116. It is difficult to understand how the ante-Nicene editors and some other writers can concede the genuineness of the Epistle of Polycarp to the Philippines, and still claim that it cannot be dated earlier than the middle of the 2nd century. If there is any portion of it that belongs to that period, it must be an interpolation. The original epistle, if genuine, was written very soon after the martyrdom of Ignatius. This will become manifest by comparing this letter with the one from Ignatius to Polycarp. In that letter, Ignatius says, "I salute him who reckoned worthy to go to Antioch in my stead, as I directed thee." This can only become intelligible by reference to the 13th chapter of the Epistle of Polycarp to the Philippines. It must be borne in the mind that Smyrna, the residence of Polycarp, was southeast of Philippi in Macedonia, the place to which his letter was directed, that Ignatius had passed through Macedonia on his way to Rome, and that Antioch, whence he started, was a long way southeast of Smyrna. Polycarp, writing from Smyrna to the Philippines, says, "Both you and Ignatius wrote to me that if anyone went into Syria, he should carry your letter with him." He proceeds to say, in substance, that he will send the letter if he has an opportunity. Again, same chapter, 13, he says, any more certain information you may have obtained, both respecting Ignatius himself and those with him, have the goodness to make known to us. He refers to Ignatius in language implying getting tongue-tied. He refers to Ignatius in language implying that he had proceeded with his friends on his journey to Rome. Nothing can be plainer than if the letter is genuine, it was written after Ignatius had gone to Rome to suffer martyrdom, but before information of the particulars had been sent to Smyrna. It has been objected that in the chapter 9 he spoke of Ignatius as having already suffered martyrdom, while afterwards he asked for information of Ignatius and those with him. The latter portion has been thought to be an interpolation, but we do not think the two passages irreconcilable. Ignatius had gone to Rome as a martyr, and Polycarp believed him to have suffered when he wrote and inquired after his companions' particulars of the martyrdom. Upon the question of his genuineness of this epistle also, there has been considerable discussion, but it was expressly referred to about the year 190 by Irenaeus, who in his youth had known Polycarp personally. Polycarp lived till 155. Evidence as to the four Gospels. The passages claimed as parallel are all sayings of Christ, somewhat similar to those in the canonical Gospels, but not ascribed to any definite source. No mention is made of either of the Gospels: Luke, Mark, John, or Matthew by Clement, Ignatius, or Polycarp. One of the sayings of Jesus quoted by Polycarp is precisely like one quoted by Clement, but is not in any one of the four Gospels. It is as follows: Be pitiful that ye may be pitied. In Clement, word for word, the same. Again, Clement. Forgive that it may be forgiven you. Polycarp. Forgive, and it shall be forgiven you. The nearest to the which in the canonical Gospels is, For if ye forgive men their trespasses, etc. These circumstances and some others struck the mind of the Reverend Mr. Sanday with so much force that he admitted the passages might have been derived from other collections. He concludes that if the Apostolic Fathers did not make use of the Gospels, they had writings closely resembling them. That is true so far as the sayings of Christ are concerned, but in other respects they were widely different. The saying of Jesus had become so extensively known among his disciples and had been preserved in so many different ways that they maintained for the most part a substantial identity in whether writing contained. Perhaps the most satisfactory solution of the question of the evidence of the Apostolic Fathers was found by Dr. Less, a German evangelical scholar who wrote about the year 1770. He was author of a celebrated work written to establish the authenticity, uncorrupted preservation, and credibility of the New Testament. He was stimulated to investigate the question by a remark of Lord Bolingbroke. In his letters on the study of history, Bolingbroke had expressed a want of judgment in those who attempt to vindicate the antiquity of the sacred writings by examples drawn from the fathers of the first century, with a design to prove that these fathers had read the Gospels, though the instances alleged amounted to no demonstration. Whereupon Dr. Less gave the subject a very careful and thorough examination. The result is given by Bishop Marsh in a note to Macaulay as follows. Excuse me. From the general epistle, as it is called, of Clement of Rome, it may be inferred that Clement had read the first epistle of the Corinthians. From the shepherd of Hermas, no inference whatever can be drawn. From the epistle of Ignatius, it may be concluded that he had read St. Paul's epistle to the Ephesians, and that there existed in his time evangelical writings, though it cannot be shown that he quoted from them. This investigation was made long before the discovery of the Curitan epistles, and the remark of Dr. Less was founded upon the Vossian letters, which were more voluminous, and included 4 spurious letters ascribed to Ignatius. From Polycarp's epistle to the Philippians, it appears that he had heard of St. Paul's epistle to that community, and that he quotes a passage which is in the first epistle to the Corinthians, and another which is in the epistle to the Ephesians, but no positive conclusion can be drawn with respect to any other epistle or any of the 4 Gospels. As a result of this analysis, including besides the Apostolic Fathers proper, Barnabas and Hermas, and extending to about the middle of the 2nd century, no evidence of the 4 Gospels was seen in the writings of the Apostolic Fathers by this eminent German theologian. Subsequent English and American ecclesiastical writers have discovered much, as they suppose, which escaped his careful scrutiny. All 3 of the Apostolic Fathers mentioned Paul expressly and referred to his writings. Clement, in writing to the Corinthians, referred to Paul's letter to them, and Polycarp, in his letter to the Philippians, spoke of Paul's epistle to that church. There has been an attempt made to make Polycarp a witness for the 4 Gospels in another manner. For, what's his name? Fortunatus, in his note to Irenaeus, 3.3, published with some other fragments what purported to be a fragment of Polycarp out of a very ancient manuscript of Victor Capaneus, Catena, upon the 4 evangelists, whereupon Polycarp mentioned each by name, which Catena says Ferdinandius, that is Feuardentius, He there promises to publish, but whether he did or no, I know not. Victor Capaninus lived AD 480, according to this writer. Graianus placed him at AD 455, others 100 years later. This testimony may be stated thus. Fortunatus says that Capaninus had in 480 a manuscript showing that Polycarp, more than 300 years previous, mentioned the four Gospels. Westcott prudently abandons his evidence, significantly asking, is anything known of the MS Catena from which it was taken? Polycarp was for many years Bishop of Smyrna and was martyred AD 155. He was a devoted Christian and an able expounder of the faith. In his treatment of heretics, he traveled in the footsteps of Clement and Ignatius. Speaking of Valens, who had been a presbyter but who had departed from the faith, he says, I am deeply grieved, therefore, brethren, for him and for his wife, to whom may the Lord grant true repentance. And be ye then moderate in this matter, and do not count such as enemies, but call them back as suffering and straying members, that ye may save your whole body. Recapitulation. The Apostolic Fathers made no mention of the miracles of Jesus, nor do they refer to any of the circumstances connected with the alleged material resurrection. Upon that subject, Clement holds the same views with Paul and illustrates them in an impressive and beautiful manner. Ignatius, AD 115, appears to allude in a mysterious way to the Immaculate Conception of Jesus, the first time we find it mentioned in history. No reference is made to either of the four Gospels, nor to the Acts of the Apostles, nor are there any quotations except such as evangelical writers concede may have been taken from other sources. The martyrdom of Polycarp, this was doubtless one of the earliest of the martyria. Its genuineness has been denied, but the question is of little importance, as the document contains nothing of much historical value in the way of fact or doctrine.